Sometimes life is really hard. It really sucks. Things that we do not want to happen or that we didn't expect to happen anyway, and there's nothing we can do about it. Nothing we can do to change it. We just have to live life the best we can in the circumstances in which we find ourselves. I once preached at the wedding of a young woman who had just had to drop out of university because she found herself pregnant. This was in no one's plan. If she or I or anyone else in the room that day had sat down 18 months before the wedding and had to map out her life, marriage and a baby would not have featured quite so soon. But there we were at her wedding, and I preached a sermon which touches on the core of why I have committed myself to being a follower of Jesus. Because our God is a God of transformation. The Bible tells us that God is working for the good of all those who love him and have been called by him. That doesn't mean that we'll all have an easy life. It doesn't mean that we won't make mistakes or find us in places we don't want to be, that we won't have to deal with the consequences of the mistakes we make and others make as well. Rather, the core of our faith is in a God who transforms broken situations into glorious ones. The passages we've been reading in Acts over the last few days have seen a bright, inspiring man stoned to death for speaking out about Jesus. They have seen the church persecuted and scattered. These are not situations caused by God. He doesn't bring persecution and death to his people in this way. But my goodness, does God use these horrible circumstances. He transforms them. He takes them and makes them work for his purposes and for the good of his people. He takes something desperately terrible and makes it wonderful. Through these horrible events, the good news of Jesus is scattered along with the church. It spreads out into all of Judea. It goes into Samaria, to the Samaritans, the historic enemies of God's people. The good news is preached to an important Ethiopian and spreads to Africa. God takes a horrible situation and transforms it for his good, to show his glory. If I can take you back to the wedding of that young woman who, where I spoke. Her life hasn't all been plain sailing since then. But one thing I know, the result of that situation, which wasn't really what anyone wanted, was a baby who was and is loved and is loving. A child who is growing into a wonderful woman herself. God transforms situations. He can take our mistakes and some of the brokenness we live in and turn them into something glorious. If we let him, if we obey him and seek him, even, especially in the hard times.